What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, a very interesting video went live as it appears someone actually got a hold of a Switch 2 motherboard, and they certainly put it through its paces, getting an entire die shot to show, well, how exactly the system is made up, and we're going to go over some of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about that Xbox handheld that apparently is happening in collaboration with Asus as, well, it also just kind of leaked out there through FCC filings, where we have an entire image of, say, a very, very unique looking handheld. We'll take a look at that. And then also we're going to be going over Sony's new studio that they've announced that is, yes, working on another live service game. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with Rockstar and Grand Theft Auto 6 as that trailer 2 that they've recently released, that's amassed almost 500 million views across the internet. Yeah, turns out it's gonna be a popular game. But it had a different effect. People can't seem to believe that those are actual visuals in the game. It does look that good. So Rockstar had to clarify, as you can see. They say Grand Theft Auto 6 Trailer 2 was captured entirely in-game from a PlayStation 5, comprised of equal parts gameplay and cutscenes. There are some parts in the trailer that you can kind of look at and go, okay, I could see that as gameplay. For example, when Jason turns and then walks through the door there into the building, I'm kind of thinking that is maybe that transition going through the door, say ending a mission, and then it gives you control of the player. Also, like when he was on the beach, lifting weights, that kind of looked more like, okay, this is gameplay visuals. But when you see character models that are super detailed like that, I mean, it's insane some of the stuff people are finding in this trailer. Yeah, that is kind of its own flex in the sense that you don't even know if this is like pre-rendered CGI or if the system is rendering this in real time, which, yes, the PS5, not even PS5 Pro, was handling that entire trailer real time. So it's just Rockstar. It's a game with GTA 6 that has like an infinite budget just about behind it and a ton of time in terms of development, and this is what you end up with, an incredibly impressive looking game. Also, we can finally close the books on the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition that happened like a couple years ago now, but it just wrapped up with the FTC's appeal, which you can see, this is posted up. This is over on Reuters saying, Microsoft wins appeal in FTC challenge to $69 billion Activision Blizzard deal. I mean, come on. What would the process of breaking that up look like now? Going to Microsoft saying, hey, we managed to block it, everything. Now you gotta remove Activision Blizzard from Microsoft. It's just, it wouldn't go well, and then Activision, I think, would get to the point where it'd probably go away. I mean, think about how interrupted even the Call of Duty cycle, the development cycle, would be, and Activision completely hinges on Call of Duty coming out every year. It'd be a disaster. So not shocking here that an appeal would just be shot down at this point, but it really did take that long to finally close the books on that. And now we can look forward to what I think is going to be a big second half of the year for Microsoft, which is saying something because they've had a pretty big first half of 2025. But hey, we'll see, I guess, what they have in store for the next big Activision release with Call of Duty, which I assume they're going to show during their summer showcase. Oh, and we did get a release date for a Trails game that I think is good for everyone to start with. I feel like, I don't know, the Trails community, I'm sure will let me know in the comments how wrong I am, but you can see this over on Komatsu. Trails in the Sky first chapter will launch for PS5, Switch, and PC via Steam on September 19th. It's important to note that this is a worldwide release, so great news there with Falcom. A lot of times we'll see Trails games, other things come out, and then a year later, it'll make its way to the West in the US to check it out there. So I do like that this is, I mean, it's first chapter. This is the starting point, I assume. So I'll be picking this up. Yes, this fall on September 19th. Again, nice worldwide release. Hopefully we can see more of this from Falcom, because they also kind of do that thing where they have a release that goes from, say, Japan to the US, and then we find out a month after that they're doing like a special edition version of that. that isn't upgradable, and then we already know, okay, well, I just bought this one, but there's a whole other one that's coming, I guess, a year. It's a whole thing. So I do like this is worldwide, and again, good starting point for Trails. Hey, let me know down in the comments, but it has first in the title, so I'm gonna assume yes. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2, and I guess the biggest leak at this point, which is funny because the Switch 2 is out in less than a month now, but even so, what happened yesterday is something that wouldn't necessarily happen right away after release. Someone would have to get the system, tear it all the way down, and then grind down the top of the chipset to get a full die shot exactly of how it's put together with NVIDIA. Well, that's now happened, and it's actually in this video here. Now, this was posted up by Geeker1, and I had a lot of people tag me in this because it's very interesting to see as they... Okay, so first off, this does kind of inadvertently prove that, yes, there are just Switch 2 parts and systems, I guess, floating around in China, as this person mentioned that they found it on the Chinese version of eBay for $150, and it is indeed a Switch 2 motherboard. Now, it's not, it doesn't work, so they weren't able to power it on. Also looks like there's some chip damage on the top of the die there, which not a huge deal since they ended up just grinding it down anyway, I guess, but that could have been part of it, I guess, would affect it. Or, as they mentioned, it could have been maybe that board that made its way out of the factory that wasn't necessarily designed for consumers. It was one that they were just kind of putting together and wasn't really ever going to work. Could be an example board, right? Just to point out there. But again, it does show that, yes, Switch 2 systems have maybe been floating around a bit there in China. Now, they used a microscope after grinding it down to get a full die shot, which at least gives us an idea as to what we're dealing with here. And without spoiling the entire video, as they did go through a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a very, very interesting video to watch. I'll have it linked down below in the sources. They did have an English version of the video, as some people were asking, although closed caption work on their original video that they posted that translated over to English as well. But when they were going over it, they noticed that it was taped out in 2021, as it does have that marking there on the chip. So yeah, Nintendo and NVIDIA have been working on this for a little while now. They did find this 8-core A78C CPU as expected, 1,536 CUDA cores, again, as expected, and then 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5 memory, same as we figured there. So in terms of the specifications, it was pretty straightforward. There was no big revelation. However, when they did start to take a look at the die shot, they noticed that it is a very, very customized setup. And they're trying to place it in general alongside of something else that they can run benchmarks on. As the issue, it seems to be taking components and ideas from different fabrications. They say it's mostly 8 nanometer, but there are some parts of the design from 10 nanometer, so it's somewhere in there. But because of this, and because we don't have the official clock speeds, we have some that we believe are correct that are kind of rumor mill right now. But I guess considering all the other leaks were correct, and maybe these what look kind of like odd speeds, these clock speeds, I guess they're going to be, it's more likely for them to be correct than not. So they decided to use the RTX 2050, which, according to like Digital Foundry, did a whole thing on this as well, would be the closest to this. But again, there are a lot of caveats to that. So after they went ahead and showed many things running Cyberpunk, Black Myth Wukong, Call of Duty, Black Myth Wukong seemed to struggle a bit. I will say that, as you kind of figure there. Call of Duty actually did all right. Same with Cyberpunk. We've seen Cyberpunk on the Switch too, and it does run pretty well there, even in like a handheld mode and stuff. But because of the fact that there are a lot of things here that don't line up, say, with the 2050, and the fact that developers are going to target this specific hardware configuration, it's just not possible to do a one-to-one comparison here with really anything on the market right now. And in a way, that actually makes this kind of exciting for this chipset from NVIDIA for consumer use that, let's face it, is probably going to be, like, it's going to be a massive selling chip for them, this Tegra chip. And the T239 is probably going to find its way into tens of millions, 100 million plus. We'll see how the Switch 2 does when it's all said and done. But at the very least, developers are certainly going to be targeting this chip quite a bit. So I'm really curious to see what they can get out of it, because just right away from release, their Cyberpunk running at 40 frames per second for performance mode. You see it even with the benchmarks landing it at like a little above PS4 level when it comes to just raw performance. But then PS4 Pro level when it's docked, it's Again, it's a mixed bag. It's hard to exactly tell just based on raw compute performance, considering there are a lot of other things that NVIDIA is using, namely DLSS, to help this chip along the way, and to be able to punch well above its weight. Also, think about the fact that it has 12 gigabytes versus the 8 gigabytes on the PS4, and it's not dealing with a 5400 RPM mechanical hard drive to load off of, which was a ton of limitations that the PS4 had to deal with in that regard. So I'm really interested to see what this customized chip can do, and after seeing some of these die shots, it is going to be something that is going to be very hard to place alongside anything else and should be a very unique experience throughout the entire generation. Next up, let's talk about that Xbox handheld. Now, Asus has already alluded to this. They did a video teaser that seemed to show the Xbox controller going into a portal and it was going to turn into some sort of Asus ROG device. And we've also had plenty of rumors and reports about this happening. Well, now we just have images of this system, and this came out through FCC filings, which we've seen this many, many times, where images will just appear online through these documents, and most times they're at least under NDA until a certain date, but plans change in the background. It has been a little while since that teaser, and sometimes the NDA timing runs up before the announcement, and well, you can take a look here. This is there's two different models, okay? So this ROG Ally 2 is how it's being at least dubbed here and referred to. There's a black model with an Xbox button, and then just a white model. Now, the white model seems to be the lower end device, and that has this AMD Aerith Plus, which is, I guess, the next gen or step up from what's in the Steam Deck currently. This, though, is a 4-core, 20-watt chip, and it's 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5X memory. So the memory bandwidth should just be higher than what we've been dealing with some of these other PC handhelds. Interesting with that. 7-inch, 120 hertz screen. But the one that a lot of people are focusing in on is the black model with the Xbox button that is located at the top left near that thumbstick. Does have an AMD 8-core, 36-watt Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip, 32 gigabytes, LPDDR5X memory, and that 7-inch 120 hertz display. I am very curious about the pricing on this. It's kind of odd that this is the one with the Xbox button, although that white model also has a similar shaped button in that same spot. Very possible that whatever model was provided to the FCC just didn't have that Xbox button on it, like the etching for it. So it very well still could be that. I'm looking at this ROG Ally 2 with the Extreme chipset, the Z2. Based on what we see pricing now, I don't know. I'm looking at this wondering if this is just is the Xbox handheld going to be at $800? That's where I'm a little torn on with some of these images. And then obviously the handles. It's like, it's functional, not great to look at. There's also a shot of the other side with the white model, and it looks super bulky. So the slim and sleek design, there is something to that, sure, like what we see with the Switch 2. A very good-looking handheld when it's all together with the Joy-Cons. But then the PlayStation Portal is just more comfortable. It just doesn't look like a great handheld. Same with this one, technically. But it seems like this is what we'll be getting as the FCC is testing it. So, handles on the side of the PC handheld, which I guess technically plays into the idea of it being almost like an Xbox controller on the go with a big screen and everything else alongside of it. I'm curious about the pricing and the performance. It's possible maybe at Computex here in a couple of weeks it gets announced. Otherwise, maybe it'll just get pushed out on social media and they'll do a big marketing campaign. We'll keep an eye out for that. Next up, let's talk about a new studio that Sony has now announced, and that's TeamLFG. We'll talk about exactly what that stands for here in a moment, although I'm sure many people are making their assumptions right now before we get to it. Still though, let's take a look at PlayStation Blog. At the top, they say, "We are a team composed not just of industry veterans who have shipped titles like Destiny, Halo, League of Legends, Fortnite, Roblox, and Rec Room, but also industry newcomers with fresh, creative perspectives and skills. The LFG in Team LFG stands for Looking for a Group." That's a bit of a curveball there, isn't it? They say, "We'll make immersive multiplayer worlds propelled by action games that players can learn, play, and master for countless hours. We want to build our games with our communities, inviting players to be a part of our development process through early access playtests. It's critical that we stay nimble enough to react to player feedback, not just in our lead up to launch, but throughout live service as we continue to grow the game and community for years to come. Our first game is a team-based action game that draws inspiration from fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims, and frog-type games. Players will inhabit a lighthearted, comedic world set in a brand new mythic science fantasy universe. That's painting a picture there. We can't wait to reveal more. So, from what I understand, this is the Gummy Bears project that's been in development. Well, it was in development at Bungie, and then it got moved in-house to Sony, and they had formed a studio, and we didn't have an official name for it yet, but it was mostly by pulling people from Bungie. It sounded like it was 70 to 80, maybe 100 people over within Sony, and then I assume they had their own people also get together there to more or less work on a project that had been in incubation phase for quite a while at Bungie. The thing is, though, this is one that made it out. There are many that didn't, and mostly it's because this is a more unique live service style game, and it's just been described as fun, but also kind of related to something like Smash Brothers. So the way that they're kind of modeling this as MOBA, Smash Brothers fighting game with a lot of social aspects, I'm at least curious, but it's not been a great run for Sony when it comes to the live service stuff. And after seeing right now what's happening with Marathon, where people seem extremely unsure about how the launch is going to go for that game later on this year, this will be an interesting one. But Sony seems all in on it to the point where they have an entire studio, TeamLFG, that'll be backing it, so we'll see how that turns out when they're ready to talk about it a bit more. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that odd situation with Gears of War Reloaded, of course, being announced for PlayStation 5, seeing the Gears of War logo and characters right next to the PlayStation logo is a strange one, and it's also going to be really strange when it's on a PlayStation 5 box, like for the game itself, because it does appear we're getting a physical copy of this, but not for Xbox. I know. Very strange. We can see this posted up, though. This is over on Push Square. It says when Gears of War Reloaded makes its PS5 debut later this year, you may be able to purchase a physical copy. That's according to a Spanish retailer who's listed a product page for the game on its website and claims it's received confirmation from the manufacturer about boxed PS5 and PC versions. Now, apparently, okay, I'll say this, the PC version is something that is somewhat popular in different regions around the world, but it's mostly the whole code in a box because, let's face it, on PC, if they gave you a Blu-ray disc or like 12 DVDs, you wouldn't have a disc drive to put it in anyway. I mean, okay, let's be honest about that. So the code in a box for PC makes a bit more sense there, especially if it's like Steam. That's probably where a lot of people want it anyway. But on the PS5 side, I mean, it lines up with what you'd expect. It's just odd that it's, hey, Microsoft's going to release Gears of War Reloaded on the PS5, but not on the Xbox. I don't know. We'll see about that one, because again, this is coming from a specific retailer that maybe doesn't necessarily have all the information for the Xbox version. It's going to be a very strange thing to see, though. I will say that. If there is no Xbox version and you go into a Target, a Walmart, a Best Buy, a GameStop, and your only option is to buy Gears of War Reloaded on the PlayStation 5, what a world that'll be. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you have a Switch and are getting a Switch 2, what are you doing with your old Switch? Well, 80% of you apparently are just keeping your system, which, hey, I guess if you have a dock already set up in a spare room or something, and you can drop it in and leave it there even, that would work. Or, I mean, the homebrew community keeps working on the Switch. I assume there'll be more breakthroughs well into the future. So in that case, probably worth holding on to. But otherwise, is it even spread just about across trading it into a Switch 2, selling it secondhand, or gifting it to someone? Which, hey, you know what? It's not. Don't discount the idea of maybe being that cool uncle or aunt or brother or sister or whatever, and just give the Switch, gift it to a younger kid or something who that's their first system. You know, sometimes it is nice being in that position, being able to do that. Otherwise, though, I figured a lot of people would have been trading their system in, and some people are, but at least Nintendo's providing the option to be able to upload at least all of your information that you would do in a system transfer to the cloud to be able to pull down from your Switch 2. Just some advice. Don't trade your Switch system in at midnight at GameStop. Do that the day before or something. Just get that all done, because otherwise you're going to hold up the line, and something tells me the 30 or 40 people that'll be behind you waiting aren't gonna be the most thrilled. And then we'll go over to the comments of the day. We'll start with the members comment here. This is from Harold. It says, Sony could raise the Pro by $100 and it would still sell if it runs GTA 6 at 60 FPS. Well, that would be the only option then if that is the case, and people who are really, really invested in GTA Online will absolutely pay out more money to get 60 FPS, and if that means getting the PS5 Pro, that's what it is. There are people who spend a lot of money on GTA Online, so I assume You say it raise $100. Let's just say they're digital and they're, okay, it's $800. Drop in the bucket for, I'm sure, the amount of money they spent on shark cards over the last decade plus. Sure, but we have to see with that PS5 Pro, because Sony is in a very precarious situation right now. Depending on how things are going with tariffs and stuff, they might have to raise it more than that. I'm trying to figure out what the price point it would be for Sony to raise to. Maybe just match the Xbox Series at this time, and the PS5 Pro does go up another $100 or $200, but that $1,000 console is coming up pretty fast. And then we'll go to the comment of the day. You can see it here. This is from Mr. Bungle, who says, what they bring to the table with Battlefield all depends on whether they are willing to cut off the old systems and give up those sales or not, in my opinion. So, from what I understand with the playtesting going on right now, it's Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. I haven't heard anything about older systems. I don't think it's coming to older systems. I think they're leaving that behind for now. And in that case, I'm expecting like legitimate destruction when it comes to buildings and everything else around you. Not everything is going to be destructible, because then you would end up just people just blasting everything to start the match and you're just in a field. But there should be many destructible parts, I'll say, to kind of avoid camping, or at least place some more strategic moments when it comes to getting through a building or taking down a certain structure, maybe to provide cover or just take out an entire team. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card, or maybe hear more discussion around Sony and some of the odd moves they're making, especially with PlayStation Plus. We did an entire click R3 around a lot of that with myself and Ryan, and I'll leave that in a video below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.